Hey, Bjorn, how are you? Happy Friday. Go for it. I think I know what it is already, but go for it. When moon? All right. Well, do you know that India right now is in the process of landing a lunar rover on the moon? Did you know that? I didn't know that. I saw an article today. Fourth country ever to land on the moon. They launched a rocket, I think, sometime like 6 months ago, or some crazy nonsense like that. And it's supposed to land sometime around 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a little later today on the moon. So today, actually, someone will be on the moon today. So not someone, something, I guess. So that's exciting. Hey, Six, my bad. How are you? It's pretty cool, yeah. I mean, the amount of mathematics, it's definitely cool to see the first people that did it, right? The amount of mathematics that human beings had to disassemble or assemble in order to figure out how to safely land a moving projectile on a moving surface in space is mind-boggling. Now they have computers to do it, so it's kind of, at least that piece of it is much less spectacular. But it's still amazing, that's for sure. To be honest, every time I get in a plane, part of me always thinks like this is pretty amazing. Like I'm flying in the air on a fucking huge piece of metal. That in and of itself is kind of amazing, to be honest. Hey, Axel. Hey, Jet Fuel. All right, I think we can get rolling here. So for those of you who've never been here, which may or may not be none of you, my name's Kevin Murcko. I'm CEO here at CoinMetro. I do this Ask Me Anything This Week in Crypto every week on Friday, usually at 3 p.m. Talon time, GMT plus 2 or 3, depending on the time of year. We have a bit of an agenda we like to follow. We go market news. We do this thing called Kevin, which is 10 pieces of news curated over the past week by members of our elite Telegram group. Thank you, guys. I basically just give a quick reference point on each of the 10 pieces of news, discuss it a bit, usually under 1 minute each segment. Then we move on to Kevin Explains Crypto. Then we cover today's term or phrase, usually has something to do with crypto, hopefully. And I try to explain what it means in layman's terms, I guess. And then we do live Q&A here on YouTube, and we cover Reddit questions that were submitted over the past week as well, if time is permitting. Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think CZ may already turn in, because I swear to God, some of the things I say on here, they do it like 3 days afterward. Maybe not him, but he's definitely got some spies among us. I don't know which one of you it is. It's one of you. We will find you. All right. I kind of felt like the dude from Taken there for a second. I'm just not, I guess I'm bald enough to be him, but I'm not old enough yet, fortunately. All right, so let's do the news. Number one on a list of 10, guys. News this week is actually kind of nice. I just briefly looked at them. They look kind of cool. So anyway, new list. So if you don't care about news and you just want to hear, let's say this the live Q&A, I'll see you in about 12 minutes, 13 minutes, right? So we got 3:05 here local. Let's see if by 3:18 we can get there. Let's go. Number one on the list of 10, U.S. Congress urged to regulate crypto sector under Bank Secrecy Act. Yeah, this is, most of the time when there's a story about regulation, I'm usually like, yeah, common sense, whatever, moving on. This is a bit ridiculous, though. So I read a bit of this testimony. I'm going to just bring up the article right now so I can read it again to remember who it actually was who made the David Murray. Yeah. Okay. So this is FinCEN, the guy from FinCEN, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Treasure. Oh no, from Fin. Okay, Financial Integrity Network. Okay, so it's an advisory firm, and so the Bank Secrecy Act. I think the problem here is that most of these guys that make these recommendations, know about as much as blockchain as I know about, I don't know, sending a spaceship to the moon. But that doesn't stop them from making assumptions and then going in front of Congress and telling them what to do. which I guess is how government generally works. People who don't know what they're doing tell other people that don't know what they're talking, people that don't know what they're talking about tell people that don't know what they're doing what to do. And then eventually nothing gets done. It's pretty much the definition of modern government, right? So I guess in that sense, this makes perfect sense. But the Bank Secrecy Act doesn't work for blockchain, doesn't work for blockchain-based assets. Look, there are definitely regulations that need to be applied, guys, but the specifics of the Bank Secrecy Act make very little sense when tied to immutable, cross-border, global payment infrastructure. It just doesn't make sense. That doesn't mean that at some point some of these things can be applied to the on and off ramps, right? To certain on and off ramps of these currencies, and to certain, obviously, if banks deal with cryptocurrencies, well, guess what? They have to follow bank regulation, right? Unless that regulation changes. But on the face of it, I think most of what he said, and this article that we actually have quoted here doesn't have most of it. I wish I had the other article that I had read because it had some of the full testimony. But this will take much longer than a minute. If anybody wants to discuss it, you can ping me on Telegram. We can talk about it. Number 2 on the list of 10, Binance acquires Singapore-based crypto spot and derivatives exchange. I mentioned, I think it was like 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, I mentioned on here that I couldn't believe that Binance wasn't doing more acquisitions. See, one of the spies in the room must have, called up CZ and was like, bro, start buying things. And that's what he started doing. So I think this is like their second or third acquisition, if I'm not mistaken. Look, it makes sense. From a business angle, somebody finally got into Binance with some business sense. Obviously, nobody had business sense in the beginning. I mean, not even like half a business cent, never mind cents. But eventually, they definitely now have somebody in there that has some business sense. You have a lot of money on the books that's just sitting there doing nothing. You start buying companies. I mean, that's acquisitions, right? Mergers and acquisitions. So they're doing that. So good on them for finally getting somebody on the team that knows what they're doing, in at least in that area. Yeah, it makes sense. Look, they're desperately trying to create a network of regulated counterparties so that if, and I should say when, their main business gets completely destroyed, that they will have multiple other entities. I'm just wondering how they're structuring these things. So they don't structure them correctly. If they're tied too close to that parent entity, well, they're going to be shit out of luck once that parent entity has more legal issues. Number 3 on a list of 10, Bitcoin exchange traded volume falls to lowest level in 2 years, but the price continues to rise. All right, so a quick question for anybody listening right now who's actually listening. Why do you think that is? It's a pretty easy answer, but how is it possible, and why do you think, what is the major catalyst for exchange traded Bitcoin volume to be falling while the price continues to rise? Anybody got an answer on that one? CZ Spy, anybody? Anybody want to throw an answer out? I'll give you guys like 10 more seconds. It's a pretty easy one. Well, no, I need a Jeopardy. It's shit. I can't remember the Jeopardy. Manipulation could be. Wash trading could be, sure, but the exchange volume would go up then because they're just taking metrics from like CoinMarketCap probably, so they don't filter out wash trading. So the real reason is futures. So everybody was saying that the futures market would create mass adoption, right? But what the futures market is doing is allowing now institutional investors, and not so institutional investors, to be able to come in and buy into Bitcoin without actually touching the underlying asset, which is what's traded at the exchanges, the actual deliverable product. So we're creating a synthetic market that is larger than the underlying physical market. And yes, that can be tuned in as manipulation, for sure. We're manipulating the price of the actual deliverable asset by trading a synthetic version of it. So yeah, there you go. So everybody that thought, and I think, at some point I said, when futures comes in, it's not going to make any difference in terms of, on overall adoption of actual crypto. I think this is one point on the scoreboard for me, considering that it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't. Clearly, you can see that adoption of the physical asset volumes are lower, even though price is higher. Okay, so number 4 on a list of 10, Ripple continues mass dumping as fresh 500 million XRP leaves escrow wallet. Well, I mean, come on, guys. I mean, I guess everybody knew this was probably going to happen. These guys, the question is what they're doing with that money, because they obviously have a lot of cash as well. Ripple has a lot of cash. They were giving away cash last year, millions and millions to any company that would basically come in and use Ripple as some type of underlying technology, not Ripple, but XRP, use XRP in some way, shape, or form to give it utility. So, this isn't really, this was expected, right? This is expected. The question is, what are they doing with that cash? I would say they're hoarding cash for some big acquisition, actually. Whether that's 100% of MoneyGram or Western Union or whoever it was. I think they invested in MoneyGram. I think they own 10%, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they want to buy the rest of it. They're doing something with that money, and it's not for operations. So that's interesting. That could actually be beneficial to the price. Think about that. Because if they're hoarding money for an acquisition, that acquisition is big enough to where it actually gives a new surprising utility to XRP, which currently doesn't have. Could be quite bullish. Number 5 on the list of 10, BitMEX has released evidence that Binance has plagiarized the vast majority of its Bitcoin futures documentation. Yeah, I tweeted about this one. Not surprising at all. Look, well, and I don't even want to say this because I don't really feel like defending Binance because I don't like them. But plagiarism might be a strong word here. Let me tell you why. When you go to a lawyer's office and you're like, bro, I'm about to get sued. I needed some type of agreement that can be signed. You know what they do? They go through basically an archive of all agreements they've ever made. They change a few lines and they send it to you. Is that plagiarism? Did they write that themselves? Did they take it from somebody else and then adopt it? Who knows? Right? There's a lot of standards, a lot of frameworks, there's a lot of standard frameworks used in legal speak, right? Especially when you're writing legal documents or documents that are very technical in nature. Lots of things are copy pasted, guys. Lots of things. Because when you talk about a definition, an instruction, I don't know if you can plagiarize an instruction, right? Because, how do you jump into a pool? You stand up, walk to the edge, jump in. Now, if I write that and somebody else copies it, is that plagiarism? That's just how you jump into a pool. It's an instruction. Now some of these things obviously were kind of acronyms that BitMEX made up. So in that respect, I guess you can still come on the bandwagon of copying. But guys, is that not expected? You're talking about the biggest unregulated financial ecosystem, one of the biggest unregulated financial ecosystems that's public in the world, plagiarizing the biggest unregulated futures exchange in the world. And they're plagiarizing a topic that's connected to what is a regulated product being sold by an unregulated entity. So that's already two wrong things. That's already three wrong things, right? And the saying goes, two wrong things don't make a right. Well, maybe three does. I don't know. But not really surprising. If you think Binance is like above board and everything they do is like legitimate and everything they do there is great, then somebody pulled the sheep's wool over your eyes already. This should show you that, well, they're lazy, that they don't have anybody competent to do it on their side. And the only thing they're trying to do is go quick to market with as many products as they can to maintain the value of BNB, because I guarantee BNB will be tied into their futures model, because BNB they dump BNB like crazy. The reason why BNB price doesn't go down is because they just as quickly add in additional utility value to the BNB. But eventually, just like every pyramid, that's going to come to an end. So sorry for the bag holders when that happens. We're taking too much time today. These are kind of interesting today. Let's see. Number 6 on a list of 10, the Marshall Islands launched sovereign cryptocurrency with limited supply. All right, so there's always a WFC every Friday. This is it for this week. Who fucking cares? It's kind of like, who cares about the Marshall Islands? I think their entire economy is probably less than the size of the economy of one city block in Los Angeles. So, who cares? But I did mention on many shows back that eventually we would see sovereign currencies on the blockchain. I suspected it would probably be one of the biggest economy to do it would probably be a Commonwealth entity at first, whether that was Canada, Australia, so one of the Commonwealth entities. I might be wrong about that one, but you can definitely see a pattern, right? And Facebook's Libra may have pushed these guys into action because they basically gave them the blueprint of how to put a central bank on the blockchain. Number 7 on a list of 10, U.S. firm raises $12 million for bank-focused blockchain payment solution. I love seeing these things, right? Somebody comes out and says, we're already in the payments industry. We're going to create this thing and centralize the shit out of it to save 2 cents per payment. And someone goes, I'll give you $12 million for that. I got to start talking to these guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking to the wrong people. Anyway, You know how many bank-focused payment networks are currently being worked on blockchain? Lots. So it's just another one thrown into the mist. Is blockchain a perfect solution for banks? No. You know who's a perfect solution for? Non-banks, right? If we give it to banks, it becomes part of the traditional financial infrastructure that sucks. And I guarantee you they will make it suck. Because look, on the face of it, Swift is a great idea. You know why it sucks? Banks. Swift is immediate, guys. When you send money on the Swift network, it takes about 3 seconds. You know why it takes a day or 2 or 3 to credit? Because the bank sits on your money and makes money off it for 3 days. You know why when you make one small error on an account number, it gets stuck in transition at some correspondent bank for 2 months? Because they sit on it and make money on it. It has nothing to do with Swift, right? So let's just hope that whoever actually creates the next payment system that people actually use is not a major bank. Number 9, 8 on the list 10, Digibyte trading to kickstart on BitTrue exchange by 12th of September. Well, good on Digibyte. They were one of the first ones that we announced we would list. We are definitely getting back in touch with them so we can list them. They have a few interesting products they've been working on. I think we have some similarities there that we've been kind of working behind the scenes. Not many people know about it, but we've been doing some good things. So we'll definitely reach out back to them. So I don't even know who BitTrue is. I mean, maybe I should. But good on them. Number 9 on the list of 10, Norwegian bank invests in crypto exchange founded by airline magnate. Yep. So Norwegian Airlines, actually. So kind of makes sense. They're probably friends. I don't think this is really a tip of the hat saying that, oh, this is such a great idea, so let's invest in it. I think it's just old boys club type of thing. And well, if that's what it takes to get some more exposure, that's what it takes. But it's definitely an old boys club handshake type of agreement. I don't think even the airline generally thinks that this is going to really change the industry. They're getting some press out of it, and they're getting maybe some additional exposure. And the Norwegian bank, they're probably buddies. And this way they form an alliance, and it helps them both sell both of their products and their brands. Number 10 on a list of 10, IOTA partners with Jaguar and Land Rover for tracing the car energy with distributed ledger technology. Yeah, we talked about this actually with another product, I think on this, might have been on Blocks Live, but anyway, at some point we talked about this. IOTA is actually kind of becoming like the blockchain of use for car manufacturers. And they're looking, I think, at some point to kind of tokenize usage so that, when you drive to a certain area or you drive over a certain amount of kilometers, you get tokens. You can redeem those tokens for maybe maintenance on the car or whatever. They're starting to create a whole entire ecosystem. It's cool. They found a niche. And if all blockchain companies look to find one niche and one standard, they'd probably actually do much better for themselves, because everybody kind of comes out, we have a blockchain that can do anything. And that's great, but what is anything? Then you got to explain what anything is. It takes too much time. They have a blockchain that does one thing, and not just one thing, but it's one thing that they started to focus on, and they definitely seem to be doing much better than their competitors, at least in that specific niche. Okay, guys, before we get into our live Q&A, I'm going to run my quick Kevin Explains Crypto. So if you want to pass out and fall asleep for a few minutes, this might be a good time to do it. So this week's Kevin Explains Crypto, I have on my screen here hybrid POS and POW. POW is not prisoner of war, guys. It's proof of work, just in case you're over the age of 50 and have been to Korea or something. So proof of stake, proof of work. So this one's a bit hard to explain. Not hard to explain, but it's hard to define, because there are several companies that are using different hybrid proof of stake, proof of work consensus mechanism. So when we talk about consensus on a blockchain, which basically means you have a piece of data, in order for that data to be confirmed, there has to be consensus. That means more than one confirmation, more than one node, or more than one miner, or more than one whatever stakeholder is saying that data is accurate, right? So when you have proof of work is what Bitcoin uses. It's miners. That means that someone's constantly doing some type of work. And when you talk about Bitcoin, you're talking about the fact that they're basically going in and they're doing mathematical equations to understand and unlock information that's in each block, right? That's what proof of work is. When we talk about proof of stake, in order to get to consensus, it's based on how much of a certain asset you're holding, how much you're staking. And if you're staking more, you have more access rights, and you might be the next person to be selected, or the next stakeholder to be selected to confirm the next block. That's basically how it works. Now, there are, the reason to combine those two is for different reasons. One, some people believe it adds to the decentralization model, because it makes it a bit more flexible. I've seen, and I don't remember the names of these tokens or the names of these blockchains off the top of my head, to be quite honest, but I've seen in the past one that basically creates a ticketing system where essentially the amount of stake that you have allows you to basically buy tickets. And those tickets are basically then used under the proof of work to figure out who's going to actually claim that next block. And then I've seen others which are more of a generalized mix of proof of stake and proof of work. The point is, I guess the general definition, this is a long one this week, guys. I guess the general definition is that it takes the proof of stake concept, the consensus module, let's say the consensus mechanism of proof of stake, where the more you own, the more rights you have, basically, to proof of work, which is the more powerful your processing computer is, let's say, or chip is, the more power you have, and combining the two to lessen the amount of energy that's required and increase, let's say, the increase the amount of voting power one has based on the amount of assets they earn, with an eventual, I guess, goal of creating a better and a more decentralized way of figuring out who holds the most power on the network. That's it. Okay, let's jump into the Q&A. Okay, so Jeff, you were just saying we need physically backed ETFs. Yep, well, physically backed ETFs. They're coming, guys. I can't say that I think it's going to make too much of a difference either, though. It'll definitely counteract this less volume, higher price thing. To be honest, even in regular markets, normally when you see lower volume, higher price, it means a crash is coming. Because what it usually means is that while the price is going higher, it means there's less buyers, which has to mean that there's substantially less sellers. So it simply means that while there's not a lot of sell pressure there isn't a lot of buying pressure either. So eventually you get to a climax point where now you're just a neutral, you're in a range. And normally, since now there's no buying interest at that price, in order for there to be buying interest, price needs to fall. So if you look at it from, regular market mechanics, I wouldn't be buying at this level. I would be selling. I'd be looking to buy lower. But people that take market studies and technical analysis that would normally used in highly liquid markets and try to apply it to very illiquid markets tend to get surprised on many times. So I would say that's not necessarily the case, but in generally, when looking at a price that goes higher with lower volume, it is going to fall. But yeah, I think it at least will show some better correlation between futures buying and selling in the actual price and the actual volume and price on connected deliverable exchanges. So David asking when funding. So on Monday, we sent out a letter of intent to our Brazilian friends. They have a deadline of today, end of their business day, which I guess will be 5 p.m. Brazilian time, right? 11 p.m. or so Thailand time, to send that back. It doesn't change anything from our initial offer. What it does is it adds a timeline. It's basically 7 weeks. 7 weeks from the time of signature of the LOI for cash in hand. And during those 7 weeks, there are time that we're able to sit down and have an arbitration negotiation. There's time for putting together documentation. There's time for a signature of an actual legally binding agreement, et cetera. So that's where we stand in terms of funding. When burn the correct XCM total amount? We, as we discussed, what hasn't happened, one, we've already segmented wallets, that's for sure. We've been waiting to see more people actually withdraw tokens just to make it sure, just to have a better understanding if the totals we have for each are 100% accurate. We're talking about dust here for the most part, but and maybe on a few accounts, not dust, but mostly dust. But when you total up all that dust, even though it's not overly significant, it's something. So I do think that more than likely, once we start our own token burn, anyway, they will be burned. That's the point. I don't have a specific date because it's not something that, to be honest, I brought up in the last couple of weeks with our team, because we've been bringing up lots of other things, most about Tram right now, since that's the next product we're going to launch. But it will be adjusted. So it's already been basically adjusted on our side in terms of what access we have in terms of our own reserve. However, we haven't yet officially burned those tokens because we want to give it a little bit more time to understand that what number is correct. I think we had about 6 different numbers at one point, and we're down 3, 4, 2. I think we have 2 now, and they're both pretty close together at this point. So all the data we get helps us, get closer and closer to that end number, and then we can go ahead and burn. Any news on Tram? So yeah, Tram right now internally, guys, I'm gonna say this again, because if I have to come out and hear somebody say soon again, or come out on a date that I mentioned right now on Telegram and say that we didn't do it and that we missed our promise, and then put out some big long rant of 7 pages that talks about how we missed this, that, or the other, and how blah blah blah. I'm gonna go nuts, and I'm gonna tape myself throwing my phone off my balcony into the street, and then watch like a Mack truck roll over it, and that'll become a meme, and it'll be awesome. So the date that we have internally for Tram release is the 15th of September. Internal release date of Tram, 15th of September. That is the date that Dev feels that it will be completed. We have brought on a Q&A team, an external Q&A team. On top of the Q&A team we have formed from Telegram and from our own employees. They actually came into our Slack channel today to start to do more brutal Q&A testing on the Tram interface. The date that is supposed to end is 1 week from Sunday, which is the 15th, which is when we feel that when Dev feels that they will be ready to release. We would never release it on a Sunday, so the release would probably happen that Monday, but that Monday also may coincide, here's a hint, guys, with another possible release date or product launch date, I guess. So we might not do it on that Monday. It may actually happen a few days afterward. But the 15th is the key date right now, internally. I'm just gonna, if I had some red letters, I'd throw them out on the screen right now. Somebody asking about and.io jet fuel. I just gave you a big hint about that, so we'll just leave it there. When fix the utility for XCM so they burn on every trade? That's happening. That looks it's kind of happening in unison with Tram, so it'll happen right around the same time. As I said in the last couple AMAs, right after the Tram release is when we plan to push that out as well, and continued work on our APIs as well around the same time. Any update and when new website? So David again. So as I mentioned, we had a website that was being done, that was being kind of put together by our guys. I threw it in the trash. We now have a new one. So front end is now fully working on Tram. After Tram is released, internal date being the 15th, then the front end team will be able to focus on the website, because the next product after that is margin posting, but we still need to do some technical stuff around margin posting before we start to work fully on front end. So that means that from September 15th, maybe a few days after, whatever, but around September 15th, front end will move on to the website. We have mock-ups done. I'm much more happier with them. I still feel there could be a little bit of wiggle room, but I'm much more happier with what we have than what we had before, which means around the 15th, development will start. I would expect 2 to 4 weeks to get, well, probably 2 to 3 weeks to get the landing page up. So by end of September, early October, first landing page is up, main homepage. And then every 2 to 3 weeks after that, we will push new pages live. There's a total probably about 8 to 12 pages all in. I think on the top menu, there might be 5 plus the landing page, and then there'll be some smaller promotional pages or pages specific to certain products. And that'll take some more time to release. Any update on Montenegro? Yep. So we got an official letter yesterday, actually, the day before, from the president of the Capital Market Authority in Montenegro, basically a reference letter, officially giving a professional reference to myself, as well as the other co-founder on the CSD, and for CoinMetro, for myself, saying that they would be more than happy and they are eager to receive our applications into the sandbox, and they're eager to help us go through the process. So with that letter, we are now waiting on the full application package, which I expect to receive next week. We will start the application process for CoinMetro. I think by the end of the month, we will be in the sandbox. That means that CoinMetro will be able to list STOs or regulated STOs or regulated assets. We will also be doing at that point settlement inside of CoinMetro, because the CSD won't be in the sandbox yet. So we will be, obviously it's a bit of a dumbed down version of settlement. It's basically what happens now, meaning one buyer, one seller, and then we do the virtual settlement on both sides. So that's where we're headed. So once we get there, previous to us getting into the sandbox, probably a week or two, we will start to see what products we may be looking to list. There's already a few possibilities. The CSD had in mind to list probably 5 to 10 assets once it goes into the sandbox. I think we'll limit CoinMetro to 2 or 3. This will allow us probably 2, to be honest. This will probably 1 equity product, 1 debt product. This will allow us to show how it works, how the MTF would process orders, how reporting will work, all that good stuff. Using basically our same trade and margin capabilities that we have now, with some additional reporting and probably some additional back office as well. When can I buy a CoinMetro t-shirt? Hey, Jet Fuel. We're getting there, buddy. We're getting there. We really need to get some cooler designs. I got to be honest. I mean, this, Iron Man CoinMetro t-shirt that I always wear or whatever is good for me. It was kind of, I wanted to make some t-shirts, so I did the easiest thing I could possibly do. But we need some cool ones. I mean, maybe we can have a Soon one with, Soon trademark or whatever somewhere. Maybe we can have them with a couple meme shirts would be kind of cool. Maybe we can pick out some of the best memes and we can make some t-shirts on those. I don't know, but we need something cool. I'd be willing to pick up the bill to make the first couple hundred of those bad boys. And then maybe everybody that's on one of the AMAs can get a t-shirt or something. We'll see how we do it. Why is CMC circulating supply XCM only 8 million and 0 total? Yeah, David. See, it's I don't know. CoinMarketCap. I mean, those guys are just all NASA engineers, and I just don't know how their brain works. So I have no idea. I don't even know where they pulled that number out of. It seems that we did everything they asked us to do in terms of vaulting, in terms of this, in terms of that. I think what they basically did was take a rough number of tokens that have been withdrawn off of CoinMetro into customer wallets, external wallets, and that's what they consider circulating supply, which is absolutely ridiculous because when they're in their customer wallets, they can't even trade them. There's only one trading venue, which is CoinMetro. So in reality, the best determination of circulating supply are the tokens that sit in CoinMetro's virtual wallets. But they don't understand that for some reason. So we're trying to make them understand that. We haven't gotten anywhere yet, but hopefully at some point, every time they correct something, they make another error. So hopefully when they correct this one, they don't, call the thing the XCM token or I don't know, the XWM token or something. I don't know. Something's going to happen. We'll have to see what it is. Any comments on the price right now? Decreasing every day, sadly. Hey, Dave. Well, as a trader, and I say this with all due respect to everybody who thinks they're a trader, who may actually be one, day-by-day price is absolutely meaningless. 100%. If we talk about decreasing value, every asset will have times during its lifespan where it has extended periods of drawdown. And that's every asset. You can include Bitcoin in that one if you want. Actually, everybody that throw all the Bitcoin maximalists that come out with like statistics on Bitcoin, it's always like year-on-year highs every year since 2012, Yeah, great. Except for that 9-month period where it was in the shitter, right? So, Dave, look, right now we're talking about a token that's available on one platform that has yet to do marketing, right? Or substantial marketing, let's put it that way. And has seen sell pressure on one day of the actual circulating supply of over 1% of the actual circulating supply, and was able to maintain a value of less than 20% above the high below that day's high before the sell pressure hit. That's quite extraordinary. So I think if you look at exactly how price has been maintaining, I think we're doing quite well. What I know is that once we institute the full utility and the burn and all, not even the burn, but the utility of pulling XCM off the market, and we finish pushing out our products, and we start to bring in more users, that the value of XCM can only go in one direction. And I'm talking mechanically. I'm not talking about speculatively. I'm not talking about based on people want to buy it, like to buy it because they can buy ice cream with it. None of that shit. I'm talking about mechanically speaking, it will only go in one direction. So if I look at the price now, I would say it makes sense. It makes sense that after a lot of sell pressure, after a bounce, that we continue on a slightly downward movement, because after people see that sell pressure, then they're late to the game. They may also sell. This is the opposite of FOMO, but it makes perfect sense. What it shows me, though, is that there's a legitimate floor right now where people are valuing XCM. Regardless if they already own some, they are valuing XCM at a certain price point, and that price point is providing buoyancy to the market. And that's a good sign. That's a very good sign. Any comments on the, okay, how is the self-assessment guidelines by, I don't know. LHV came back to us early in the week to tell us that they were working on all of our specific questions, and we have a lot of them right now that we posted, not only listings, but other things. The self-assessment, they said that they're making progress. We have already given them all the guidance we possibly can without knowing what they've done. So there's no more guidance we can give until we get some type of draft. I don't have any information on the draft, when it'll be given to us, nothing like that. I just know that it's being worked on. I expect today, if not today, next week to get feedback. Feedback and answers next week. Feedback possibly today. Wannabe, once Tram and other products are out, what will be the budget for marketing? Well, releasing the products has no direct correlation to our marketing budget. Having money is a direct correlation to our marketing budget. So once we get the fundraising, and probably from these Brazilian guys in terms of at least a bit of fundraising, we will have a bit of a marketing budget. We've been looking to re-fertilize our marketing team as well, and that's still in process. So looking for possibly marketing head, copywriters, etc. So to kind of and that team will then be tasked with having a small budget, testing, finding copy, finding places where that copy works, and then we'll start to throw some more money at it. But releasing the products doesn't automatically mean we market. Releasing the products brings in new users. New users then help us make more money, combined with the fact that we're fundraising funds come in over and above what we need on a monthly basis in terms of burn rate, at least for 3 or 4 months. And excess money is then used for marketing. When do me and Bjorn get on the board of directors? Hey, Jet Fuel. Board of directors, huh? I don't know, non-executive board, supervisory board or something, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. We got to talk about it. That's something we definitely got to talk about, for sure. Any update on the debit card? So debit card. So I had a discussion again. I think it was might have been late Friday, could have been Saturday. And then again, maybe Monday, Tuesday this week about debit cards. So right now, in terms of all those 25 currencies, plus some additional extras that may be added in by this time, the provider has told me October 15th is their kind of go live date. That's the point where those IBANs, those virtual IBANs, will be housed in the UK instead of Luxembourg. We'll get a fixed cost instead of a percentage cost. We should be ready in terms of integration as well around the same time. And that'll allow us to launch the IBANs around the same time. They have now found the specific card printer that they want to use. They have been in the process with MasterCard now for 3.5 weeks. That process was always slated 8 to 12 weeks. So I thought they were about 5 weeks in. It's 3.5 because it took them some time, I guess, to get some additional documentation. So they're 3.5 weeks into an 8 to 12 week process. And they found the printer. I'm waiting for now the final printer guidelines so we can make our own card designs, make sure the printer can handle them. And then, October 15th, multiple currencies should be available from the provider. Hopefully, at the same time, we will have integration more or less completed. Might be semi-manual at first, after that going automatic. And then debit cards, in terms of them being ready on the provider side, we're talking 4.5 to 8.5 weeks from today. And then as long as we can get our designs done in the next 3 to 4 weeks, that means that that design approval should happen right around the same time as well. What is the real circuit supply in CM? Cited says 258, but that is more than 127 ICO plus 1 million liquidity. Well, it's 127 million sold in the ICO, in the token sale, the 100 million of liquidity, and everybody knows we sold a bit of that. So it's not 100 million anymore. It's less, not substantially less, but less. But then there's tokens that were given to advisors, and there were tokens that were given as well to shareholders. Some of those, the advisor tokens were available right away. The tokens that were given to shareholders, 25% is now available since August 1st. Every 6 months after that, another 25%. So circulating supply is definitely bigger than what was sold in the ICO, plus the liquidity supply, but liquidity supply, we're going to be locking a large a portion of it, so it'll be taken out of circulating supply. That's happening over the next few days. Jordan asking, is liquidity provider still due to come online on the 15th of October? Yes, that's as I just mentioned. How's the progress on 25 fiat currencies? Already mentioned, guys. I read an article from Michael Burry claiming that ETFs is the next financial bubble in the comments. Yeah, he was talking more about the fact that because nobody invests, most people don't invest in stocks anymore. They invest in ETFs that then invest in the stocks. I think look, I'm not taking anything away from the guy, but don't assume that the guy called the financial crisis and called it exactly perfect, because he didn't. We got lucky. Look, when you make a big play in finance, normally it's 90% luck, 2% intuition, and like 8%, I don't know, right place, right time. But it's always luck as a majority, always, because no one can predict with anywhere near a high level of probability where a market's going to go. You can look at history and everything like that, but you can always be wrong. So luck always plays a big portion. What I would say is that I don't think that's the next major bubble. It could definitely be the next major bubble, guys, is consumer credit. We saw what mortgages did. Now, you don't think that consumer credit isn't packaged and repackaged into derivatives as well. It is. And consumer credit just in the US is in the it's huge. I mean, I think the average American has like, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 in credit card debt. That's everybody, guys. It's huge. It's a huge bubble that will blow up. And when that blows up, it'll be substantially larger than the mortgage crisis locally in the US. Now, how that filters out to everybody else depends on who bought into all these derivatives and all these complex products built on the back of debt. Not only that, but there's a huge industry, cottage industry, built on the back of finding that debt when the debt isn't paid, all these different people that go after the debt. There's a domino effect there, guys. I think that's much bigger, maybe not bigger in terms, because you could say, oh, ETFs, the amount of ETFs on the market are blah, 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 trillion. But would every ETF blow up? I don't think so. There's reasons why specific ETFs may blow up. There's reasons why the ETFs, the fact of all the money flowing into the ETFs, could affect the underlying stock markets. That's for sure. But ask how many people in the world, per capita, how much money they have in the stock market, and compare it with their debt. I guarantee you the debt is higher on average. Are you going to support multiple languages on the CoinMetro platform in the near future? Near future depends on your definition. Near. That's the plan. Yes, 100% support multiple languages. Near future, we need to get everything out in English and make sure it's actual English before we start, putting out, bad Spanish, Japanese, Chinese. So it's a process. But yes, that is definitely the goal. And we would work it around the fact based on regions that we support. If we see that we have lots of support in South America, well, Spanish would be the next step. If we see we have a lot of support in France, et cetera. So we would go based on where our own clients are based, rather than speculating on where clients may exist for CoinMetro. Any progress with banking in Australia? Not really. Not something right now. We're delving back into banking now. So people on the team right now are reaching out to banks. Some of those are in Australia, but no immediate update. But over the next couple of weeks, we'll get some responses. We'll see how we work with the bank. And we are registered now with Austrac as a remittance provider as well as a crypto exchange. That may change the fact that the ability for us to get banking in Australia may not, but we'll see. Besides the Brazilians, any other big tickets? That's the focus right now is on the Brazilians. There's a few other possibilities floating around there, but the Brazilians are where most of my focus lies currently. We still have the guys in the UK. I probably will have a call, or maybe even my plan was to be in the UK first week of September, because that's when these guys are going to be back in town. I don't think they're back in town yet. And unfortunately, I have a packed travel schedule from the 10th all the way till October. So it means I won't be able to travel there, but I suspect to have a call at the very least at some point, and we'll see what's up with those guys as well. Jack, congratulations on listing BAT and Alpha a few weeks ago. Which one of these three coins have been the most successful so far and created the most trades? I got to be honest, I don't think any of them really. I don't think there is a better one out of any three, because there really isn't much trading going on any of them. So obviously we're talking about bringing in market maker support towards the middle of this month. That should help change that, because obviously somebody goes to CoinMarketCap, they see zero volume, they assume there's no liquidity. And they'd be wrong on Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, et cetera, because we have underlying liquidity. They'd be 100% right when it comes to those tokens, because we don't have liquidity for them, external liquidity, it's all internal. So I do expect that to change once we get market making underpinning those assets. But for now, I'd have to say they're all pretty much at the same level, which is, infant. So they're at their infancy right now. We don't really see much volume from any of them. Bjorn coming back. Liquidity provider. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, liquidity provider still. Well, we're back and forth with them, but yes, we've already kind of started looking at integration, looking at APIs on both sides, and because around the 15th, it looks like we have two products that we're going to be rolling out. Again, that date is always to say that that's when they'd be ready, and maybe even we're ready, but that doesn't mean we actually go into full production on that date, but that's generally the timeline. I think it's definitely going to be pushed a bit, mainly because of all the product launches, at least on our side. On their side, they still have a few things they have to go through on our side to get the account open, funded, et cetera. But it shouldn't take all that long. They're committed, we're committed. So I do expect it to happen generally within that timeline. If CM runs into any critical money issues, would you consider selling relatively large chunks of XCM from the liquidity pool outside of the book so price won't be affected? Look, selling outside of the book is something whenever we sold, we would have considered. Just we didn't have a mechanism in place to be able to do that. And I actually mentioned a mechanism like that in a couple board meetings, but it was never really actioned. So the answer to that would be yes, we would consider it for sure. It would definitely make sense, especially if they were vesting tied to those sales, because wouldn't make any sense if we were to do that. And I mean selling at all. If we were to do that, selling to someone who immediately would just sell right into the book, right? So not just do it ourselves at that point. At least we could mitigate because we wouldn't try to crash it ourselves. Any sneak peek on the next proposed IEO once Parsec is launched? Areas of interest? Not yet. We have one that's very interested for an October or November launch, based in the Netherlands. We have another one that's based in the UK that would like to launch around the same time. And there's another one based out of Argentina, and then another one as well. So no specifics yet. But once we get through the Parsec direct offering, direct issuance, then we'll be releasing additional information. When tokenized debt on XCM? Yeah, well, that's one of the products we're looking to offer in the sandbox, right? I don't think I would want to tokenize commercial individual debt. I think that's a slippery slope. But some type of tokenized debt for sure, whether that be a bond, or whether that be some type of collateralized debt, or even uncollateralized debt, or convertible debt, something. Ambassador raffle prize equals a bus fare ticket. This might affect the number of ambassadors willing to promote the project. Yeah, look, guys, all these type of things are self-fulfilling prophecies, right? The more volume, the more people are referring people, the higher that goes. That's it. If no one plays the lottery, the amount of money you can win in the lottery is going to be pretty much nothing, right? If a lot of people play the lottery, well, the price goes up. So it's self-fulfilling, which means that our job and the ambassador's job is to get more people in here actually trading and actually becoming ambassadors so that the prize value goes up. It can't be huge in the beginning. That's just not how the world works, unfortunately. Does the LOI with the Brazilians include the full funding you're looking for, or just part of it? Will you get all funds in one swoop? Jet Fuel. So it's 3 phases. The LOI right now is focused on phase 1, which is for CoinMetro at least roughly 500,000 euro. Not roughly, it's 500,000 euro. But phase 1 is basically a stepping stone into phase 2. Phase 2 is the entire amount of money that CoinMetro was looking to raise, and a very large portion of what the CSD would need. Phase two, though, however, gets much easier because phase two means we have a working product in a sandbox under regulatory supervision, and it becomes something that incumbents and people that are looking to get into the business immediately would want to jump into. It's a completely different ballgame. So, and the CSD will help CoinMetro substantially because without CoinMetro, the CSD can't show exactly how the system functions. And having an exchange and MTF inside the ecosystem that works closely with the CSD allows the CSD to be flexible and fast to market. So the CSD helps enormously. So while it doesn't include in the agreement, it talks about the amount of money a range of money that would probably be needed to move into phase two, but it doesn't guarantee funds for phase two. But when we get through phase one, guys, and we have a working product with real-time settlement between global participants with a tied-in MTF that has the technology ready, that's connected to the CSD, that can be the issuer, place of issuance, and place of initial offering and primary offering for securities that can then sell worldwide through a global settlement structure. We don't need a commitment at that point because they will be very easy to achieve. So the goal right now is to get through that seeding phase, and the money that CoinMetro sees out of that pretty much gives us enough running room to get through the sandbox as well without having to run around and raise more money specifically. So that's just the general idea. At least that's how CoinMetro ties in. Until when do the current CM funds last? We've been essentially month to month since December. So that means that every month we basically pull in funds that last about a month. Some months we've raised money that lasts 2 or 3 months. But generally speaking, it's been month to month. That hasn't changed, guys. So since December, so now working on basically 10 months, we've been able to keep the lights on, so to speak, and keep everything at the same level, especially development, on what we've been able to do in terms of fundraising. So yeah, we're in the same position basically. What kind of time frame before the CSD will be a working product, Sean? So development time for MVP, launch of MVP, is 4 months. Launch of production ready framework, meaning that we can actually build on top of that MVP, 6 months. And then the amount of time it'll take between that 6-month period, which is when we go into the sandbox. Sandbox can start month 4. So development will start probably next week or the week after. 4 months after that, we'll be able to get into the sandbox with the CSD. 2 months after that, we'll have a product that we can start building out all the functionality for the full production model. And that'll probably take could take a year, but the system would be ready to roll in production in 6 months. So limited production, limited amount of assets, limited amount of corporate actions, but 6 months. 4 months for the MVP, 6 months to start the actual, let's say, true production. Will there be an airdrop of Parsec tokens for CM airdrop family members? We've been discussing that with Parsec. I think it depends. We have to see how the sale progresses, and then we'll see if that makes any sense. Because obviously, one, as a reward for the fact that CM was able to help them with their fundraising, makes sense. The other one is if CM is actually CM account holders before people come in, new account holders come in. If CM account holders are a major portion of the raised funds, then it makes sense as kind of like a tip of the hat to everybody to say thanks. So I have to see how things go, but we've definitely been in discussion, and it may happen. It's not something that's fully written and signed on paper, let's say, but it. How big is the potential market for the CSD? Well, you'd have to total up every single regulated market in the world. So huge. Bond market in the US is 100 trillion. Generally, we're talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars, euros, in terms of the possibilities. Now, realistically, it's still very large. You're talking right now. There is no system that exists in the world that can do real-time settlement and do that cross-border globally. If that were to exist today, it would completely change the way capital markets work, both from access and from simple usability and from flexibility, from many, many different standpoints. So getting that done literally changes the game, because it changes the infrastructure. It just doesn't change the front end. It changes the infrastructure. It's massive. Any updates on USA residents to participate in the IEO being able to? That's a good one. That's an oldie but goodie. Right now, with the structure of CoinMetro Direct being the fact that it's not an ICO, that the issuer is not the one actually distributing tokens, it's us based on a sale on the exchange, I would say that there's probably not an issue. Don't quote me on this yet. I will go back to our legal and talk about this. Tag me in Telegram. I don't know if I'll get an answer over the weekend, but we'll see. But I think it might be a possibility. The biggest issue there was the fact that ICOs were self-governing. Now with IEO, it's not so much of self-governance, but governance of the exchange and the way the actual operation is done. So that it definitely changes things. How many XM to buy a nice house in 2 years? Well, is that a nice house in a banana republic or a nice house in Manhattan, Los Angeles, Amsterdam, London? Yeah, I guess it depends. It's huge, but are the market ready? The market's been ready for real-time settlement since the market became the market. They've tried to do it in Europe with T2S. They failed. It's been tried before with different markets. They failed. I think most markets around the world, even in developing countries, have now gotten to the point where at least they're more capable than they used to be. So implementation is not as hard as it used to be. It's not easy, but it's not as hard. The market is definitely ready. And market participants, anybody that's ever had to try to liquidate an illiquid asset, especially cross-border, has been ready ever since they tried to do that. So the market is definitely ready, 100%. We haven't talked to any market participant, no matter how high level the talk is, that didn't immediately become excited about the prospects of what this could bring to global capital markets. How is CM raising funds at the moment? Are you still selling XCM? Or in other words, how will CM raise funds for October? We have sold XCM. I don't know if we've sold any this month, to be quite honest. But XCM has been sold in the past, and we've been open about that. Right now, usually it's angel investors, guys. It's people that we talk to. It's people that we've talked to in the past. It's people that are already shareholders that commit for more shares. It's a combination of things, but in the most part, it's mostly angel investors. So these are people that simply want to take part, want to have a piece of the equity, and they buy in. Any other exchanges reaching out to CM to participate in the CSD? We haven't made it so public yet, so no, not yet. But if any asset that sits with the CSD, that's settled at the CSD level, they'll have no choice. But it doesn't matter of them wanting to; they would have no choice than to become into the network in order to be able to trade that asset, so that it can be settled at the CSD under the applicable regulations. CM is first mover for sure, but what are the chances to stay on top of the game in the competition? Look, I know of already 4 or 5, maybe 6 that are looking to do something like a CSD on the blockchain. But most of our key USPs, some of which I've already mentioned a few times here today, they're not attacking. Real-time settlement, guys, is difficult. Think about that. Real-time settlement, then add blockchain and latency, and sharding and scalability into that. Most of these guys think, because they've dealt with this in traditional markets. Traditional markets is, T plus 1 day, 2 days. Over a weekend could be 3 days, 1 business day. It means settlement happens at time of transaction plus 1 day. So they're like, if we can do this time of transaction plus 1 or 2 hours, 6 hours, that's fine. But then when you really think about that, it's not fine, because you're talking about a high level of transaction volume and you're delaying each one by 6 hours. Eventually that transaction queue becomes so long that forget about 6 hours. It's going to take 2 weeks. And then you're talking about finality. The legislation, the regulation talks about finality of settlement. It has to be final. There can be there's no consensus yet. There's not enough confirmations. It has to be 100% final, and it should happen in real time. So these are things that no one's tackling. I haven't heard anyone tackling these things. And to be honest, I think we have a great plan to tackle it. We now have high and low level architecture mapped out. And I see us being able to do this. And I obviously it's not going to be easy, but I don't see any major roadblocks in terms of being able to get this done. So there will definitely be competition. I know of one specific company, regulated company that already is in the business, not of settlement, but of trading, that will probably be licensed somewhere before we're licensed to do a similar service, not in real time, not truly global, not so much cross border, but we'll probably have the license first. But we will be in the sandbox before they have the license. So whichever way you slice it, we should still get a bit of first mover advantage. And our USPs are different, and they're, I think, much more ambitious, but they're definitely possible. All right, guys, we're just over the 1 hour mark. So I got a call right now with actually a cool wallet provider that needs a fiat off ramp and on ramp. So we're looking to maybe partner up with them. Rather cool setup. So we'll see how that call goes. Thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate it. As I always say, have a good weekend. Spend time with friends and family. Don't look at prices. Buy some XCM. You know the drill. Thanks, everybody, for the questions. I think the news was actually pretty cool this week. Questions were actually decent. Not say you guys don't ask decent questions usually, but some weeks, it's kind of like, people just throw in the towel or whatever. So yeah, I think we had some good interactions. We appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys being here. I'll see you guys in Telegram. Yeah, I think good news coming. There's always good news coming. It's always soon, right? Whoever, we really need to try to trademark that. I don't know if we'll be able to do it. It's a common word, but we can try. Thanks for the time, guys. Hats off, and see you guys in Telegram and next week here. Cheers.